And so it's been a week. It's been a whole week since the English pre-sale for Digimon Set 1.0, it's a very long title to get through, has actually come out in English, so both whether you're in America or in Europe or in any place that would sell English-speaking cards. And so the game has been definitely booming. There's definitely a lot of hype around the game. There's a lot of people talking about the game. It also feels like this sort of meeting point where I can see that a lot of people from other communities, whether it's like Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Vanguard or Magic or Pokemon, there's people from all sorts of communities just converging into one point, which is Digimon. And it's interesting because the fighting game community had that sort of phenomenon earlier this year when Grand Blue Versus came out, because when that game came out, we had pros from all sorts of fighting games that were getting into the game and like meeting each other that normally they would never play against each other. And that's a very interesting kind of phenomenon that's going on in Digimon purely because of how hyped it is. Now, when I got into the Digimon TCG, it was basically around the day that they announced that the game was coming to English. This was somewhere in the summer of 2020. I think it was somewhere in August actually. And when it was announced, I was like, okay, this is cool, because I have a lot of friends in Japan because I used to study in Japan and, you know, play card games every day in Japan because that's what you can do. You literally have tournaments where you can go to a different card shop every single day, and, you know, each shop has a tournament on a specific day, and you can always find tournaments. And so for my main game, SecondFight Vanguard, I always manage to find tournaments and just play all the time and meet a bunch of people. Now, you know, and Vanguard itself, you know, as a game, it's fine. It's still my main game, and I still keep up with those friends from Japan that I met through Vanguard. But those Japanese friends of mine, as ever since the Digimon TCG came out, they have been really just non-stop talking about it. And for a while, I didn't really kind of follow. It just kind of went in one ear, out the other, and I was kind of like, I mean, cool, yeah, I get that you're hyped about Digimon, you know, and it seems like this like next big thing that everyone's hyping on, but I wasn't really feeling it for quite a while. And that's why I told myself that even though I grew up with Digimon, and, you know, I loved it as a kid, and I came back to it a couple times, you know, throughout my teenage and even like early adult years, I never really like thought to myself, I was like, I'll jump on it if it gets an English release and if it looks promising. And so lo and behold, in August, they told us, hey, look, an English release is coming in January 2021, and on top of that, there's going to be a pre-sale, a pre-release in November. So I was like, all right, that's pretty interesting. So I was like, if it's coming to English, it's going to enter our sort of TCG world in English. And what I like to do is keep up with all card games that are big in English, basically. So Vanguard is my main game, but I do play a lot of side TCGs. And the part of the reason why I love playing side TCGs is purely out of the fact that by playing other games, you get to learn how they work and reapply knowledge from that game into your main game and get better at your main game that you wouldn't have been able to do if you just stuck to that circle of your own game. And on top of that, as a content creator, it's very important to see how are the content creators from the other games making their own content. What are they talking about? What are they doing? What are they showing? And what kind of content do they produce? Because that inspires my own content too. So I always kind of keep up with a bunch of different card games, both ones that are in English and also ones that are just in Japanese. So Digimon was something that I was like, I'll have to get into eventually. So English announcement came and I was like, all right, I'll get into it. And essentially I played, let's say, 24 games or so with quite a few of my, you know, Vanguard friends through Tabletop Simulator. And, you know, I was like, this game is really unique. I really, really like the memory system. This is really dope, and I really love the memory system. But outside of that, I was like, this game feels like it's missing something, and it just felt incomplete to me. It felt like there was something else missing, and I just kind of, you know, I played a good 24 games, and then the hype wore off, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna go back to my usual stuff. And so then, finally, we got to November. So all of this kind of testing went on through like August to September. I was just like playing games, you know, playing games with my friends, and just wasn't too impressed with the game. But then now, once the English release finally came, I was like, all right, I need to decide on the deck that I'm going to play, because the deck that I cared about to play initially was going to be in 1.5. So Shine Greymon wasn't going to come out until February. So I was like, well, I need to play something. So I was like, I'll either play Purple or Omni, and then I ended up pulling the 3 Omnis that you guys saw. And by the way, big love, thank you for watching the box opening. It really popped off, and I'm glad that, you know, this second channel is growing as well. So thank you very much for supporting that video too. So that's why I'm making more Digimon content as well. Not just because people like it, but also because I am personally very excited about it. But getting back to the point, I opened those boxes, got a lot of Omnimons, and I was like, all right, let's look at Red Omni. What can I do with this Red Omni? And so I decided that instead of continuing to play with a Japanese format, although I'm still playing with the Japanese format decks and it's very exciting, I was like, it's time to start playing with what's in English and see, you know, I'm gonna have to be playing playing this game anyway in English because with my local community, we have, you know, we're gonna have tournaments and whatnot, and we have a scene growing and stuff like that. And I want to participate in the tournaments of the English-speaking community, especially now since everything is online, so we can do our tournaments through tabletop or do our tournaments through, you know, webcams and through remote and stuff. I was like, I might as well learn the English format. So I looked at all the kinds of online resources, and you know, it definitely feels like a plus to be able to navigate through Japanese websites and easily find stuff. And so I found myself a bunch of resources about Red Omnimon, and I built it. And then I was playing it, and I was like, wait, hold on a second. It feels like when I was learning the game with Shine Greymon could do so many things that other decks can't, that it took away some of the enjoyment from the game in a sense. Not that Shine Greymon isn't a fun deck, but more so that because Shine Greymon, if you don't know, Shine Greymon basically is a deck that just revolves around just nuking your opponent's board. You just get rid of everything on their board, and that takes away a lot of the intricacies of like choosing to attack or not to attack, choosing to actually set up a board of blockers and stuff, or like the whole intricacy of the battle, you know, in the Digimon TCG that I didn't really get to appreciate, because that whole aspect of trading resources and like attacking into your opponent's Digimon, or like making sure not to attack with your own because your opponent might kill them, it didn't really exist in Shine Greymon as much, or if it did, it just didn't come to my mind as much as it would have normally with other decks. So when I started playing with Omnimon, I started to realize I'm learning so much more about the game now, and all these things that I'm noticing now are exactly what I'm appreciating about the game even more so. So when I had started learning the game, just playing Yellow Shine Greymon, I was having fun with it, but I was just focusing so much on like, oh, I have to draw Shine Greymon, I gotta get up to it as fast as possible, nuke my opponent's board, and then just have this beater that they can't get over. And then that was it. And every game I didn't draw Shine Greymon, I was like, well, I guess I lose, and I always lost. And then I didn't really look at any other reasons why I also could have lost. So it took me to get into the English decks and start playing Omnimon and stuff like that, that I started to actually think for a second. I was like, oh, hold on. It's probably not a good idea to be swinging early and like taking out my opponent's security, even if my Digimon is just a level 2 and it's like, or level 3 rather, and it only costs 2 and I can always replace it, because that little level 3 can always build up into something else later on that can actually win me the game. And this entire deck's win con is going up the evolution chain into Omnimon and having this just impossible to deal with boss monster. So this has not really been an intro, this has been an entire narrative, but I want to talk about some of my week 1 lessons that I've learned through just focusing on the game, focusing on the English side of things, and just playing to my outs and learning as much as possible about the game itself while playing Red Omnimon. So, as I already mentioned, the biggest lesson I learned is not attacking the security blindly. It's always so tempting when you have like a bunch of like level 3s, whether they're like 2 cost or 3 cost, there's a bunch of level 3s on the board, you know, almost like a Rookie Rush deck, where it's actually fine to attack security blindly because it's Rookie Rush. But in these other decks, it's always tempting, like you have these low cost cards and they wouldn't end your turn for playing them, and you're just like, oh man, I could really just take out a few security, it's going to get me a bit closer to winning. But that couldn't be further from the truth in a lot of these decks, because the way that decks like Red Omnimon and, you know, decks like this that need to scale up into their bigger boss monsters to win, they don't win off of those like early security checks. They win off of the super huge momentum swings of having like the Greymon that gives the extra security attack underneath your entire Digivolution chain on where Omnimon is at the top, because then you're swinging twice with a security attack +1. And the 15k or 16 or 17, if you have the right Digivolution sources, it can't be easily dealt with unless they like Gaia Force it or Trump Sword it, or, you know, that's basically it actually, at least for now. And so I learned pretty quickly that attacking security blindly, just swinging and then losing my Digimon, and even if I didn't, this was the thing, that in Shine Greymon I could attack security, and even if my little Digimon died, I was like, oh whatever, you know, I'll just play another one next turn. The part where I started to realize that attacking blindly is terrible was when I was playing against my friend Zistral, and I attacked the security with something that had security attack +1, and then he takes it, my Digimon lives, it doesn't get killed, and he next turn just attacks into it. And I was like the surprise Pikachu face. I was like, wait, you attacked into my Digimon, not my face? And he's like, yeah, I mean, this, you know, it's gonna take away your momentum. And I was like, damn, if I didn't attack with that, you wouldn't have been able to attack it. I'm gonna stop attacking blindly, you know? So it's that entire idea of just like not attacking blindly. Also, and if you're gonna, setting up enough blockers to make sure that you can like, you know, tank out the damage so that they can't actually hit your boss monster to take away your entire momentum. That was something that I started to appreciate, and I was like, this is an important lesson to take away from this first week of playing. Now, of course, another thing that comes with these kind of games that are mana reliant is optimizing your plays in general. So like optimizing your 2-drops. I started to understand why when you're looking at your rookies, you have the level 3s that have the level 3s that cost 3 that have abilities like giving you plus 1k DP or whatever else, but then you have the 2-cost ones. And I was always thinking like, oh, what's the point of keeping these 2 costs or whatever? Now I realized I can actually swarm my board with these, and they can always all become bigger over time. Or if anything, one of those random, in the later stages of the game, one of those small 2-cost level 3s, they can actually win you the game. Like if you just swing with something, take out their securities, and then you just have one single attacker, it doesn't matter how big or small it is, you can still win the game with it. And that was what felt really good. So I was like, all right, I need to optimize my 2-drops and always make sure that I'm leaving my opponent on as little memory on their side as possible. And so, you know, whether it's leaving them on 1, or whether if they play one of the memory tamers, you know, putting them up to 3, that's also something that I had to learn to optimize. But that's something I already understood from the past, but it's just something I could improve on as I played with a new deck. I think one of the most time-consuming things that I had to kind of learn in order to become better was just researching cards and reading. Like I spent an entire evening reading every single card, both in the English and the Japanese format, so that I could be prepared for what my opponent might throw at me. Because not only is it preparing for what your opponent might play down, it's also accounting for their security. So if you're attacking with something that has 12k, you need to think, okay, what could be in my opponent's deck that he could check from security that could kill it? Whether it's an option card like Gaia Force or Trump Sword, or whether it's something that just has the same amount of DP. So does this color that I'm playing against even have something that can check it? So if you're attacking with an Omnimon, the only thing that will actually probably kill the Omnimon that isn't an option card is just another Omnimon. So if it doesn't have any extra power, extra DP on it. So that's the interesting thing to learn there as well, because sometimes you are swinging with something with like 10k, and then there, in those contexts, there's a lot more things, but then if you're swinging with a 12, there's much fewer cards that can actually check it when checked from security. And so it was learning the cards and just taking a bit of time to research all the cards of all the colors, which right now, because the card pool isn't that big, is much easier, and then over time you won't have to keep up with it as much because you're going to be paying attention to the releases, and you'll naturally learn what everything is just by playing against it. So that's also a very important point to keep in mind. And now another thing that kind of connects to my optimizing 2-drops point is that sometimes I noticed that I got really into the whole thing of like, ooh, I have these like small rookies and I can put my 2-drops, and just like put them on 1. But then I would end up putting down too many rookies, and then by the time I would hatch another Digitama, I wouldn't have a rookie to evolve it and move it out. So I was like, uh-oh. So it's not just having a rookie to evolve your Digitama, but in general, like looking at your hand, especially because in this game, if you have a good chain of evolutions, you will always draw into more cards that you can continue to play out and kind of curve through and evolve and evolve and evolve and stuff like that. And so it was interesting to see that like I started noticing, oh, I can actually just hold on to this little chain, because you always have several options in how you can take your plays. You know, not just like, oh, I can play a smaller thing and leave my opponent on 1 or 2, or I can play my big, you know, like Piedmon or whatever, and then just put them on like 10 or 9, and then, you know, they get all their plays, but I get to fill my board up as well. So it was kind of this thought of like holding on to some evolution change just because they can actually chain each other into more draws and you get more resources through that, rather than just the little extra bonus that you get from, you know, having more cards on the field. But they can also get checked by plenty of cards like the Magnadramon as well. Now, speaking of Volcanic Dramon, another interesting thing that I noticed is that people can easily tech cards that are off color just to win certain matchups. So one thing we've seen pretty often is like Puppetmon being teched into a bunch of different things, because sure, you need a green ally to evolve it, but you can just play it for the raw cost if it means that you will win a certain matchup because you had it. And I've seen some of my friends, for example, put in their Volcanic Dramons purely because if you drop a Volcanic Dramon, all their small little rookies and stuff just get blown up. And so therefore, even if they're playing something like purple or blue or whatever, putting in that random big boss card that can actually, well, not even boss card, just big tech card, I guess, that can counter certain matchups, it can really go a long way to win you an entire game. But in the end, like, these week 1 lessons were very important and very vital for me to get better as a player in Digimon, and hopefully for you for listening also helps to improve and reflect on your own plays. There's still so many decks I haven't played against. Like, I've been mostly playing against the same friends, but it's mostly been a bunch of purple, essentially. So, you know, I still haven't played against, like, the red Omni mirror match, blue Omni as a whole, other blue builds on as well, like Lilithmon I haven't played against itself either. I haven't played against whatever yellow or green decks exist right now with Set 1.0. You know, I've only really played against those colors in the Set 1.5 format that Japan is in right now. And even Rookie Rush, like a deck that should be really common, I haven't really played against it either. And so I think it's definitely, over these coming weeks, it's going to be kind of learning about different matchups and understanding the meta better, and then also reporting to you guys about what I learned, because I think it might be a pretty fun experience to, you know, all of us, except for those people that have been playing since like day 1 in the Japanese release, for all of us, this is a brand new experience. It's something that we're all experiencing together. And so I don't think that there's that many of us that have like insane giga brain. You know, we all have experience in other, well, not all of us, but a lot of us have experience in different card games, and we're all actively trying to reapply that experience from a different card game into Digimon and see how far we can take it. But especially for me, I've noticed that people that have like a Duel Masters background have a much higher advantage than someone like me with a Vanguard background, because Duel Masters really has a lot of the same theoretical aspects as Digimon in terms of how to actually like conduct your plays, especially through battle. And yeah, I think the one thing that I also really appreciate about the game that isn't necessarily a lesson, but rather a thing that made me go like, ah, this is definitely very nice, is the fact that every deck, you know, is built around a boss monster. You know, like Omnimon is built around Omnimon, and any other variant of like red or blue is built around those boss monsters or a certain way of playing that deck. And so it's interesting that even when you have a certain boss monster in mind that the deck is built around, you can still win games just by being efficient. So there are plenty of games where I won with level 5 or level 6 Digimon without even going into Omnimon at all, without drawing into Omnimon to begin with, even though I would be playing 4, and it felt nice. I was like, this is nice that my entire deck doesn't make or break around a certain boss monster. That's something that is very much omnipresent, pun not intended, in Vanguard, where the boss monster makes or breaks the deck. And I know for a lot of people, myself included, we really like that feeling of like, oh, this is the card, this is the boss monster that will take me to victory. But in Digimon, it isn't really like that. While it is to a great extent that your boss monster will carry you to victory, you can still bring yourself to victory with your cards and your efficient plays, and that feels really good. I think that's probably the thing I appreciate the most about the game right now. And of course, it's only been 1 week of the official English release, but with my, you know, past playing of the Japanese form experience, I think I've played for at least a month now, but it's still, I feel like I'm learning so much more just by playing the state of the game right now. And so yeah, that was some of my lessons, some of my takeaways of early Set 1 pre-release, not even official release Digimon. And so I wanted to share this with you guys as well. As I said before, I do want to be making more Digimon content on this second channel because I'm really enjoying the game. It's not so much that I want to cash in on the hype or anything of that sort, you know, as much as it's cool to see everyone being really into it, as I said at the start of the video, it's also the fact that I'm having fun. If I wasn't having fun, I couldn't even force myself to be making these kind of videos, and you know, that's just where it ends, period, you know? And so we'll see what kind of content we make in the future. You know, I like these kind of more informative, educational videos myself because it's the kind of stuff I usually do for my own main channel, and so it's nice to talk about it and just sort of look over what the game is like right now. Once I have more experience playing against a lot of the other decks that are present right now in the English meta, I definitely want to talk more about the meta. That's something I'm always fascinated about. And then when there's other interesting ideas or topics to cover about the game, as well as theoretical aspects that I'm always interested in, I'll also make sure to cover those types of things as well. So you might not find, you know, deck profile XYZ on this channel. You might not find, you know, the best game tutorials on this channel, but I'll definitely give you guys some kind of content that you can't find anywhere else, or at least my own spin on it. But yeah, that's gonna be it for me today. Damn, I'm treating this like a pure, full-on main channel video, but I just felt like this kind of video deserves that level of quality. So yeah, if you guys like this video, please do show some support to the channel. I am trying to grow the second channel a little bit as well, and so far it's been growing really well, thanks to you guys. And also, if you're interested in me in general, my main channel is called SecondFight, so you can check that out as well. I mainly cover card fight Vanguard content. That is my main TCG, and I'm very dedicated to it, but as I said before, I always play side TCGs, and if you also want to support me, check out my my Twitter, as well as my Twitch channel, where I do stream at least 3 times a week, usually Vanguard-related content, but I'm always talking about other things in life, as well as card games. I spend a lot of time talking about Digimon lately as well, so feel free to swing by, drop a follow if you would like to do so. But on that note, that's going to be it for me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.